What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video. And today we're going to be covering Spectrier, which is something that has a little bit of use at the moment, right? I would say Spectrier has been what we call unexplored, just because there's a Pokemon called Flutter Mane that exists right now, right? And, you know, with Flutter Mane being #1 usage, the #1 ghost type, people often forget, you know, there is another very strong ghost type that is available to us, and that is Spectrier here. And then, you know, the first question that one might ask is, why would one use Spectrier over Flutter Mane? That is like the top question you have to consider if you want to utilize Spectrier, right? Well, we've got some, you know, tour results with Spectrier here that we can show you just to show you how you can utilize this Pokemon. But the main difference, or, you know, main differences, I should say, with Spectrier and Flutter Mane is just Spectrier has some tools that it can offer you that Flutter Mane just cannot give you, right? And we're going to be talking about some of those toolkits that it has, as well as how you can utilize them. And then, you know, we'll show you like an EV spread that is going around that's very, very standard of it, and show you what exactly it can calc for. And then at the same time, you know, we'll talk about general team cores that you can utilize it. But it's a tough Pokemon to use overall, right? It does have some niches, right? And when you compare these two, okay, the first thing you have to consider is, okay, I do notice that Spectrier has a little bit better of a defensive bulk, slightly, right? You know, Flutter Mane, base 55 HP, base 55 defense, not great whatsoever. Spectrier, a little bit better, 5 base defense more, right? And 100 base HP, right? And, you know, the difference between 55 and 100 is quite a bit, right? Just raw off the top of the bat, you know, 175 without any investment versus 130, that's 45 HP, right? So that's pretty significant. And then over here, you know, you just have to consider, look, 145 special attack versus 135. So Spectrier already has 10 base more special attack than Flutter Mane, right? And people forget that, right? You know, people are amazed by Flutter Mane's 135 special attack along with the booster energy. But, you know, Spectrier has 145, and then at the same time it has Grim Neigh, right? And people forget that, you know, and just in terms of how, you know, strong Spectrier can be, you know, same thing with Glacier, when you can get like these Grim Neigh boosts, which is basically a Moxie boost, right? Every time you pick up a KO, you get a +1 to your special attack, right? So you don't need a booster energy in that sense, right? You have an inherent booster energy in your ability, you just have to be able to pick up a KO first, right? So then at the same time, you look at the speed, 130 speed versus 135 speed on the Flutter Mane, 5 base speed less. And you might think that puts Spectrier at a disadvantage, and it does. But if you consider how Flutter Manes are being used right now, who's honestly going max speed Flutter Mane? I don't know too many of these Flutter Manes that are going max speed. There's still some, of course, right? But a lot of them are going a little bit slower, you know, to about a speed of this, right? Anywhere from like, you know, the 171 to about 175 range, or even like 180 range, right? And then at that point, you might say, okay, if these Flutter Manes are not going to be like, you know, max speed, then why not just opt for Spectrier, right? You're going to get a little bit more damage now, and then you have a little bit more of your, you know, physical bulk, right? Your special defense isn't all that great, but that's okay. Okay, because now at the same time you can consider, okay, I got Grim Neigh on my side. I have the ability to steamroll, whereas Flutter Mane can't do that. But, you know, +1 immediate damage from booster energy is still very, very good, right? And it's very, very good for a reason. Otherwise, why would people, you know, still keep using Flutter Mane as opposed to Spectrier, right? But now at the same time, in terms of the toolkit, yes, they both get access to Shadow Ball without a doubt. That's still relatively standard. And then the thing is, you know, Flutter Mane also has this fairy typing, which can help against the dark weakness that Ghost has, whereas Spectrier, you don't get that. You are a mono-type Ghost type, right? So in that sense, you are able to rid yourself of that steel weakness that, you know, a lot of teams try to have on their team to be able to pin this Flutter Mane slot. This is why, you know, you see stuff like Heavy Slam or even Flash Cannon still running around in the meta to be able to at least, you know, KO this Flutter Mane. But Spectrier doesn't really care about Heavy Slam or Flash Cannon, right? So you've got that going for you. And then at the same time, you know, although Flutter Mane is not weak to dark types, the Spectrier is, but like, you know, the main dark weakness you have to like just consider with Spectrier is, can I survive the Chien-Pao Sucker Punch, right? If you can survive that, then you're in a good spot. And then at the same time, how about the Urshifu Surging Strikes, right? That's another thing you have to be aware of. And, you know, Flutter Mane has that fairy typing. You know, you are able to Moonblast these Urshifus. Spectrier doesn't have the, you know, Moonblast idea, but it does have Draining Kiss, right? Now, Flutter Mane does get access to Draining Kiss as well, but no reason to do that when you have Moonblast. But Spectrier, at the very least, can go for this Draining Kiss, right? And then at the same time, it does have access to Nasty Plot, which, you know, Flutter Mane does not have access to. Now, at the same time, it does have Calm Mind, but that's not the same thing as Nasty Plot, right? Because you're getting +2 rather than +1. So in that sense, after a +2 boost, now all of a sudden, you know, this Grim Neigh is looking very, very threatening because, you know, once you pick up that first KO, now your +2 Spectre becomes +3. And now it gets a lot easier to get into that +6 range because you're able to steamroll with, you know, these Grim Neigh boosts. Now, the only thing you have to do with Spectre and Flutter Mane is, can you support them a little bit more physically? Do you have screens? Do you have an Intimidator on your team? Because they both very much appreciate it. They're a little bit weaker, you know, in that sense. So if you're able to do that, then they can thrive, right? If you don't have it, then they might struggle a little bit. They just get sucker punched, and, you know, that's all she wrote. Now, as far as like different types of compositions, right? This is one of them. Shadow Ball, Draining Kiss, Nasty Plot, Protect, right? This is a very, very standard moveset. You'll often see something like a Citrus Berry here, you know, just for like good recovery. So this way, if Urshifu does go for that Surging Strikes, you are able to dip past the threshold, and then before that last, you know, thing hits you, at the very least, you're able to get a little bit of KO and survive that initial Surging Strikes, right? So as far as like EVs are concerned, this is the standard one. You're able to at least go for 192 to optimize for the berry. Then what you can do is just go to about 175. Now, the reason why you can do this is, you know, 173, this is for like, you know, Hisuian Lilligant, for example, right? So if you ever wonder why, you know, people EV to go past, you know, 173, 174, or 175, it's because of this mon, right? I know I put Timid instead of Jolly, but the idea is the same. So 173 will outspeed, okay? But then at the same time, you know, others are going for that as well. So they're going for, you know, this idea of like, okay, let's go to 174. Then you can just go to 175 and start speed creeping, okay? So in that sense, that's pretty good. And then at the same time, this 175, that also outspeeds the Animate Max Speed Dondozo, which is coming back within the meta again, very, very slowly. You know, Dondozo is coming back. Don't be surprised if you see it at Worlds. I told you here first. Okay, then from here, you can go to the second benchmark here. You can go to the first one here with 36 investment, or you can go to 116. This is the second jump in the special attack EV spread. And then from here, you can just put 1 point in the special defense and then dump the rest into defense. Now, all you need, you know, is this much after... you know, you can survive the Sucker Punch with just this much, but then, you know, at that point, just dump the rest in physical defense. It's really, you know, it's to your benefit. Okay, so I've seen this set, and this is true from Song VGC's team over here. No, not Song, I'm sorry. Where it was the team that Aaron Zhang actually just featured today. Yeah, it was from the Terror Run from about, I would say maybe 8 or 9 days ago. This is hit. This is his spread here. Shadow Ball, Draining Kiss, Nasty Plot, Protect. So this is his same set. So, you know, this is optimized for the berry. So now, you know, we've got this set. But now at the same time, you can also see Spectre being paired with Rillaboom, and we'll show you some of those teams. But this is also optimized for that as well, because 192 will optimize for the grassy terrain recovery. And then what these Spectre teams do with Rillaboom is they're actually able to go for a grassy seed. Okay, so now you're getting a +1 to your defense boost. So this helps a lot, especially if you don't have an Intimidator on your team. Okay, because if you look at this team right here, let's just talk about this one in general. So this one has the Hisuian Arcanine, right, for the Intimidate support. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of teams that have done well with Spectre, but don't have Intimidate, but they've been able to put Rillaboom on teams like this and then just go for Grassy Seed on the Spectre. So it's like an inherent Intimidate anyway, which works in your favor, of course. All right, so now we'll go back here. You know, this is another idea, right, with Spectre and Rillaboom. All right, makes a lot of sense. And then from here, you know, just like a common core from Sword and Shield, you know, this idea of Grimmsnarl plus some dark type like Galarian Moltres, or even, Roaring Moon, which is, again, the second team I'm going to show you, right? Grimmsnarl helps a lot here. And then let's just explain the Moltres idea. So, like, this is an old Sword and Shield core, right? You're able to set up screens with the Grimmsnarl with Reflect and Light Screen. So this way, your Spectre is able to stick around for a little bit longer. And then at the same time, able to set up the nasty plots, you know, and then from there, +2 Shadow Balls, +2 Draining Kisses, inherent recovery over time. And then if you're even able to get up at least 1 or 2 KOs, then you know you can just steamroll your opponent, and they can't really do too much to stop the Spectre at that point, right? And then you have a Fake Out mod, like Rillaboom. So Fake Out is able to allow you to set up the nasty plot, for example. So that helps as well. And then at the same time, what you can also do is lead Rillaboom Grimmsnarl with these types of teams. You know, click one type of screen on the first turn, then the second turn, you can just click something like Parting Shot and reposition, and then finally get in the Spectre where now both screens are set up and it's in a much better spot to be able to set up. So I've seen ideas like this, but this is an old Sword and Shield core, like I mentioned, and I feel like if you want to start out with trying to use Spectre, just do something like this, right? Grimmsnarl, Spectre plus one of these 2 dark types, and then from there, just go with like a straight Fire, Water, Grass core, right? And you know, don't even like try and change the template, just stick to what works, okay? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna show you some other sets with Spectre, you know, not just this set, but like, what else can Spectre give you that Flutter Mane can't give you, right? So this is like one of those first initial sets, but then if you look at it, what else can Spectre do besides just like a Shadow Ball Nasty Plotter, right? It can also give you access to Snarl, which can reduce special attack damage, of course. Then you also get access to Will-O-Wisp, right? So now these are already moves that Flutter Mane can't give you, okay? So now Spectre all of a sudden can be a more supportive Pokemon, where now you can just go 252, 252 Timid, right? And not with a Grassy Seed or not with a Citrus Berry, but actually with a Focus Sash, right? So Shadow Ball, Snarl, Will-O-Wisp, and then you also get access to Taunt. So now you're able to stop, you know, potential Trick Room teams being set up, potential Tailwind teams from resetting. Well, you know, they are Prankster, of course, but at the same time, they have other moves that you can also stop. The Goodras can't set up now if they want to be able to do that. So Taunt is very, the Amoonguss, right? You know, though these are 2 Pokemon, you know, Goodra and Amoonguss that you want to be able to taunt. So now you're able to do this, okay? And then if you want, you can, instead of Shadow Ball, you can definitely go for Hex, right? If you have enough status on your team, you can definitely do this. But if not, you know, Shadow Ball is a very, very much acceptable move. In the past, this used to be also Bulldoze if you had Metagross, you know, for Dynamax weakness policy shenanigans. I feel like people will try that when Metagross does come back, just for a little bit of remembrance. But until then, I don't think Bulldoze is necessary here. It actually could be a decent niche idea, you know, with the Moltres, you know, just to give you like a little bit of speed control in that sense, right? So then the Moltres can outspeed, you know, for something like that. So if you're willing to explore that, go for it. But this is another type of set that Spectre can give you that Flutter Mane cannot give you, all right? So hopefully you understand some of the nuances that Spectre can give you that Flutter Mane can't. So now let's take a look at some of these other teams that have also utilized Spectre to their fullest. All right, so let's talk about, actually, let's go back to the first team here. So this is the original top 8 Terror Run team from Gokepan, right? So I believe Aaron Zhang actually just features his team today on his channel. So, you know, go figure. But again, Moltres, Grimmsnarl, Spectre, there's your starting core. Then you have this Arcanine, Gastrodon core, you know, Fire, Water, Grass, ideally, right? Because of the Terrestrialized type. But the Arcanine can, you know, just give Intimidate support for the entire team. Like we mentioned, Flare Blitz, Rock Slide, Extreme Speed, great coverage all around, of course. Then the Gastrodon, just in general, not only just supports the entire team, but also just able to provide Yawn, which can force the opponent to reposition, you know, and then at the same time, you can capitalize off of that and then just go for that nasty plot, of course. Right now, Tailwind, of course, for speed control here on the Moltres. Rest Chestoberry was an interesting idea with this Moltres, but I understand it because of the recovery and being able to reset your Berserks again and again. So I understand that idea. So because, you know, there's no Amoonguss here, right? So for the healing purposes, so I guess the Chestoberry Rest set was rather interesting, but it does make sense. And then, of course, your Steel typing Goldengo helps support the Moltres, right? Because, you know, again, the Moltres and the Grimmsnarl are both weak to the fairies, right? So you got to have at least something with the steel coverage here. And Gholdengo is able to provide that along with Trick. And again, the Parting Shot along with the Arcanine Intimidate support is just able to help you get into position where Moltres and or Spectrier and even Gholdengo can do the job that they need to do. Gastrodon can also come into some of these Trick Room teams and then just click Yawn and then keep forcing them to switch. And then before you know it, all these Trick Room turns are stalled out. So really, really cool idea here from Kogepan. So shout out to them with the top 8 result. But then if we talk about Song's team, and if you look at Song's team, it's a very similar idea that we discussed. And it's a similar template to Kogepan, but it plays differently, right? So this Spectrier, like we said, this is a Hex, Snarl, Will-O-Wisp, Taunt set, but they've opted to go for the Citrus Berry set as opposed to the Focus Sash set. Still very, very much acceptable. But the idea here is instead of making Spectrier like a huge offensive threat, it's more of a support Pokemon here for the, Roaring Moon and some of the other big hitters. So you still have Spectrier, Grimmsnarl plus Dark type, okay? Then you have this Fire, Water, Grass core with Heatran, Rillaboom, and Urshifu, okay? Makes a lot of sense. And again, you could totally see, if you wanted, you can even change this to like, Grassy Seed Spectrier and be a little bit more offensive. But you don't have to do that. It is an option, not necessary. But you do have a Fake Out Mon to be able to set up the Roaring Moon with the Dragon Dance, of course. Heatran substitute, along with Grimmsnarl screens is really, really good in those Trick Room games. And then, against like Indeedee Armorage or Indeedee like Hatterene, you can just Snarl, of course, just ruin their day and stall out those Trick Room turns because they're just not dealing any damage, right? And then their team has no Intimidate, right? Unlike, Kogepan's team, which has Arcanine for Intimidate support. But the Spectrier does have Will-O-Wisp, right? So that's even worse, actually, than an Intimidate because now you're burned, right? Because the switching out doesn't even help you. So in this sense, it's kind of like, Intimidate in the sense that you're neutering physical attackers. So there's the idea here. But, again, I would just use these two teams, right? Like if you really wanted to use Spectrier, try out these two teams. I feel like they're really, really good. But there's another team. Actually, there's a couple more teams that we've gathered and done a little bit more research where they've also been utilized, with the Spectrier. And here's the Palkia Academy House Tour number 13. Okay, and here's that Grassy Seed Rillaboom set that we discussed earlier. So here's Nasty Plot, here's Shadow Ball, Protect, Draining Kiss. Here's the Grassy Seed, Terra Fairy, of course, to help you against the Dark weakness and help you do a little bit more damage with Draining Kiss. Here's the Rillaboom, like we mentioned. Urshifu, Rapid Strike, Hisuian, Arcanine. There it is. Very, very familiar core. Then now you have Tornadus Regidrago where you're just able to go for Tailwind and then click Dragon Energy, of course, right? So very, very familiar core with a lot of these Pokemon. And the question that you might have to ask is, like, would Flutter Mane actually be better on a team like this? Maybe, okay? It really just depends on the set you want to run. But yeah, I definitely could see Flutter Mane be on a team like this, right? Then over here, if we look at Gardevoir, a 3710 team, again, 4th place placement in the Cobalt Cup. Now, no EVs here, of course, but again, here's that Rillaboom, here's that Grassy Seed. So there's that combo yet again. Here's Dragonite Chenpao. We already know what these two can do. There's the Heatran yet again. So, and here's another Fake Out one. So 2 Fake Out options here. So that'll help you stall out other Trick Room teams and other Tailwind stuff, right? And then here's Icicle Crash, right? As opposed to Ice Spinner because you don't want to blow up your own terrain. Here's a pivot option with Volt Switch and U-Turn. So kind of like that Grimmsnarl idea with Parting Shot, of course. But you're just able to reposition with your 2 Pokemon and then just keep cycling these Fake Out options where you can set up these nasty plots and then from there just, steamroll. So really, really cool idea here. Definitely another good squad. Then I've seen this team before. I know Joel used this, and if you don't know Joel, I'm talking about Joel Nino from the Poke Bros. So this one also had some interesting results as well. So here's an Intimidator, here's Corviknight, here's Spectrier. Okay, and then here's instead of like Tornadus or Grimmsnarl, here's Thundurus with Thunder Wave, Leer, and Eerie Impulse. Okay, all right, and here's that Protect, Will-O-Wisp, Hex, Draining Kiss. So a little bit more supportive. Here's that Focus Sash idea behind Spectrier. Makes a lot of sense, definitely for sure. Okay, and then from here, just honestly, now you have to just consider, like, again, I've seen, you know, multiple teams that have utilized Spectrier now, you know, in terms of like, what can I do with a working idea? So again, if you want Rillaboom, you go Grassy Seed. If you don't want Rillaboom, then you can just do, you know, teams like this, where you're just able to follow this dark type with Grimmsnarl, right? And I feel like that's just a very, very standard core to build off of, right? So again, you just have to ask yourself, is Flutter Mane better in this slot on my team? Or can I really use Spectrier and make my team just a little bit better and have a little bit more of a niche role that maybe Flutter Mane can't give you, right? So like, can you put Flutter Mane on a team like this? You already have a Grimmsnarl. You already have a Goldango here. You know, I feel like Spectrier is a little bit better just in terms of synergy, you know, as opposed to that. But, you know, it just really all depends on how you want to play the squad, right? So let me know what you think of Spectrier, and if you tried it out yourself. I just wanted to spotlight it and just, you know, give a shout out that, again, Spectrier is just one of those niche Pokemon that when put on the right team, it can do very, very well. It needs the support of screens. It does need Intimidate, all right? But all those things considered, you know, it can do well. And it can steamroll your opponent with those Grim Neigh boosts, which Flutter Mane cannot do. All right, we'll be back with another video the next time, folks. Peace out, and have a good one.